Hi, I'm Kirsten. Guess you know me. Maybe, do I have to speak louder? Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm an architect with a small business, that's why I'm here. And I have been struggling with my time management, stress management, different things, and I've been teaching for the last 3 semesters, and it just got a little bit difficult for me, and I've worked with how to handle the different parts of my business, the architecture part, the business part, the teaching part, and while I was in that process, I've been talking to my friend Eleanor, who happens to kind of work a little bit in that field. She can talk about that more. And we thought it could be an interesting thing to talk about how to manage stress and deal with all the different things that come at us at this forum. So that's kind of how this idea came about. And so I hope that you guys will enjoy this and get something out of the interactive session we're going to have today. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Glad you're here. Welcome. I'm not entirely sure is the camera on the mic? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I'm Eleanor Smith, and I do have a slide presentation for you today that I titled Too Many Hats Getting You Down, Ways to Manage Stress and Boost Joy. So I'm just going to jump in. After my presentation, actually I will pause at some point. Kirsten, if you could sort of give me a high five around 15 minutes in, I'll figure out if that's a good time to just sort of pause and see if there's any comments or questions. But after about 30 minutes, I am going to sit down and we're going to hopefully have sort of a conversation around the table and the virtual table. So I'm going to dive in here and let's see, where am I not? I'm not sure how to advance these slides. Oh, just touch that. Okay, so who am I besides being a friend of Kirsten's? I've had 4 careers, and I'll just quickly go through what they were. I've been a solopreneur most of my adult life. Started after college as a journalist, and most of that 16-year journalist career, I was freelance for magazines and newspapers. And then I had a pivot and went to graduate school at Cal and got a master's in city and regional planning. Did not go to work in city government, but worked in economic development consulting for a few years. And then, as luck had it, I was recruited to a philanthropic foundation, an offer I couldn't refuse, and that started really a 30-year career working with foundations and nonprofits, and that turns out to be where my deep passion is. I now teach nonprofit management through Sonoma State University. It's an online course. I teach it with several other instructors twice a year, and I coach leaders. I'm a leadership coach for primarily nonprofit and philanthropic leaders, and I know that they're all, not all, but many are facing burnout, and they're really struggling with what's on their plate and sort of getting the so-called work-life balance, and struggling to decide where to take their careers. Okay, I don't usually do this. Oh, just press it, okay. So I'll just, disclose right off that I've had 2 bouts of burnout. The first one worse than the second. So I was a staff writer and an editor at Friends of the Earth, which was founded by David Brower. And here we are in the David Brower Center.
That's picturesque.
So I worked for for Friends of the Earth for 5 years on the editorial staff, where that's where I learned journalism. And then I left and wrote a book and freelanced for magazines and newspapers. And as a self-employed freelancer, I burned out. I was doing too much work. I had a regular gig with a newsletter publisher, legal newsletters, and I was on deadline. I was their stringer out in the Bay Area, and I was freelancing for magazines and newspapers evenings and weekends. I was a go-getter, and I was working way too hard, and I developed carpal tunnel in both arms, and I had to quit. And right at the moment that I decided I couldn't do this work anymore, that's when the publisher in Washington decided to offer me a full-time job, and I had to turn it down. So that was devastating. So it's a lot of what informs my desire to sort of talk to folks about how they're doing their work, how much they're working, and just sort of have the conversation about work. This was something I'm sort of offering as a bridge from what I do and what you do. So frequent switching among the many roles, as Kirsten mentioned in her intro, can create friction and also cause some stress. So these are just a few of the roles that I am aware that you play. Maybe not all of you all the time, but probably lots of other roles as well. I recently came across some research about the stress of entrepreneurship. I was listening to a podcast, and this person, Yael Benjamin, who has a company that works with startups, she did this research with global business founders around their mental health. And yeah, it's an issue. 72% of the founders said they struggle with mental health. 37% struggle from anxiety or suffer from anxiety. That feels a little low. 36% say they're burned out. I will define burnout in a moment. 54% are really stressed, really concerned about failing in their business. And this last one was pretty striking. 81% admitted to hiding their stress, their fears, and their challenges from other people, including their co-founders in their business. So just sort of grounding that with some reality may not be relevant to every one of you, but okay, so work-related burnout, as defined by the World Health Organization, is a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. So that's what we're talking about here. And I just want to debunk a couple of common myths about burnout, that burnout is the result of personal failure or weakness. There's actually a ton of research. There are organizational psychologists at Berkeley who have identified the causes of burnout, and those are mismatches, as they call it, between workers and the work that they do, and that those mismatches are in terms of rewards or workload, fairness or equity, values. If the workers' values differ significantly from the organizational values, that's an issue. Control or autonomy about work, and community, the community of the organization. Is there community, a sense of community and camaraderie, or is there a lot of distrust and maybe competition? Excuse me, and I added what I have come to recognize, an overfocus by many of us on work, that work becomes the paramount focus of our lives. You've heard of hustle culture, grind culture, burnout culture. It's not limited to any one sector. It's certainly all over the social sector where I spend most of my time, but it's, as you can see, it's hurting entrepreneurs and definitely the corporate sector. Another myth is that burnout is not something that solopreneur architects specifically or any small firm owner should be concerned about. And the reality is that it costs organizations to allow burnout culture to persist. It can hurt the bottom line through turnover, absenteeism, medical leaves, low morale, and low productivity. So that can be for the founder, the business owner, and or any of the staff. So it's worthy of talking about, in my view. So on the personal level, just personal health, burnout, again, is chronic stress, and that can lead to these particular health issues: reduced immunity, such as frequent colds, cognitive issues, impaired thinking, decreased memory, medical illnesses like ulcers or high blood pressure, irritability, other mood changes, sleep disruptions, and insomnia are extremely common for people suffering burnout. I have a slide with amazing quotes from nonprofit executive directors. I rarely get enough sleep. I can never get my work completely done. And then anxiety, depression, and substance abuse as an attempt to control the stress symptoms. So these are the symptoms. The experts agree 3 dimensions, 3 characteristics or symptoms of burnout. You feel exhausted or lack energy. You're feeling cynical or negative about your work, your clients, your colleagues, or others. I know when I was burning out as a journalist, before I really got the carpal tunnel diagnosis, I started to hate magazine and newspaper editors. And I thought, that's not really helpful. How can I do my work? These are the folks I interact with who I market my writing to. And the third dimension is you feel ineffective, like you're not doing enough. Even if you're busy all the time and you're feeling super overloaded and overwhelmed, you have a sense that you're not doing enough. So I'm inviting anyone who's interested, willing, to take a self-assessment on a 1 to 5 scale. How burned out do you feel right now? Sort of check in with yourself. Number 1 is not at all, I'm totally good, I'm chill. And number 5 is I'm extremely burned out, I'm toast. So I'll just give you a second to take a take a self-assessment, and this is a tool you can use down the road any other time you feel like taking a self check-in, how burned out you feel. It may be motivating. And this is, these next couple of slides are from a book I read just recently called Slow Productivity, The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout. Very appealing title for me. So the author is a Georgetown University professor of computer sciences who writes a lot about our relationship to work. And he talks about rampant busyness in knowledge workplaces. He calls that pseudo-productivity, that a lot of organizations focus on how busy the employees work, or look, rather. And so he has anecdotes about organizations that are judging how productive the workplace is based on how busy people appear to be. So that's not real productivity. And I'm summarizing an enormous amount of really interesting material into this slide. The 3 strategies that he advocates are: number 1, do fewer things. Sounds really easy, it's not. work at a natural pace, and 3, obsess over quality. So I'm going to dive in just a little bit to each of these. So number 1, the do fewer things. He says we would be well advised to select 3 or 4 mission imperatives to focus on during any period of time, say a quarter, because you can't really do justice to more than that. Those are the big projects. And secondly, work at a natural pace. Don't rush things. If you can approach things seasonally, people who work in a seasonal business, architects may be considered those because the building trades, of course, are seasonal to an extent here in California. And guard your focus as much as you can to continue to work until there's sort of a natural pause or milestone of accomplishment. And approach your work with a highly motivating goal of creating extraordinary results. This, for me, was the most challenging part of the book, was thinking about obsessing. That sounds like perfectionism. And he does address perfectionist paralysis and says he's talking about, just find that internal drive to do really good, great work and allow yourself the time and space to get those extraordinary results. He has so many anecdotes of creative people. This is an extremely short list, who are known for their meaningful contributions. So it's a super interesting read. Okay, so other tips to reduce stress. This is from another source. You've heard the expression, put the big rocks in your glass. If a glass represents the amount of time and energy you have, put the big rocks in, sort of focus on those priority projects, so that if you put all the little rocks in first, you sometimes don't have time for the big rocks. That's the concept. Develop consistent habits about when and where you do your most important deep work, and also create routines and set aside time for those admin tasks that don't have imminent deadlines. Because if you keep putting those little rocks aside or smaller tasks that you don't have to get done right away, excuse me, you may find yourself up against an actual deadline to get those items filed, or you really do need to get in to see the doctor before you take an extended overseas trip or something like that. That's 15. Thank you. All right, I have a couple more slides, and then I will take a pause for questions and comments. And this, I love this third tip, is schedule unstructured, unfocused time every day to relax and refresh your brain and body. And it's really helpful just from a sort of physiological and neurological standpoint to alternate intense brain-focused activity with more relaxing, unfocused activity. And the unfocused can be staring into space out the window, gardening, walking, even chatting with somebody on the phone, just something that's more relaxing. Because I'm sure you're like me, if you do focused work for 2 or 3 hours, I get so hungry. It uses a lot of calories to do that kind of brain work just sitting at your desk. So don't underestimate the need for rest and pause. So we may want to talk about some of this in our discussion session coming up. I do have an exercise for everybody to do in a moment before we pause. So these are some questions to think about productivity hacks. I really listened to this section of slow productivity carefully, think about the ways you can limit the number of tedious tasks you perform. Think about time blocking, sort of, set aside blocks of time, maybe an hour in the morning to look at email, an hour at the end of the day, so that all these tasks that can suck up a lot of time, we know email can do that, don't bleed into the most important or productive part of your day for that deep work that you want to do. Task batching simply means, putting similar tasks together to avoid, the brain friction of switching, because you are going to, challenge the brain when you move between type of activity to a different type. And this was a challenging prompt, ways to push some tasks back onto your colleagues. If you have colleagues giving you things to do, maybe you're not the boss and your boss is always giving you things to do. It's a really interesting section of the book, and I actually took this advice to heart. My burnout story, part 2, I had learned something. After many years consulting as a fundraiser to nonprofits, I got a job as the staff development director for a small group, and it was during a recession, and I soon learned that 3 full-time fundraisers had just been laid off, so my department now had me full-time and a half-time assistant. And they, of course, didn't want to reduce the number of activities or responsibilities. So I went to my boss and I said, gee, I need help. What's most important for me to focus my time on? And I told him I was really getting stressed. This was like 3 weeks into the job. And he said, oh, don't worry about sleepless nights. You get used to those. And yeah, he probably laughed. I took it to heart and started making my exit strategy. I left about, 5 weeks later. So I now invite you to do an exercise that I hope will be helpful. So I want us to be reminded of what we value the most in our life, and particularly our work life, because this reminder can help us align our habits based on what's most important to us. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen, we're going to do that after we do a visualization. So just get something you can take just a couple of notes. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for just a couple of minutes and take a few deep breaths. We'll do 3. Inhale. Exhale. Number 2. And 3. With your eyes closed, I invite you to imagine your ideal work day. To see yourself feeling happy and hopeful and relaxed and accomplished or fulfilled, however you define happy, relaxed, and hopeful. Just sort of get a picture in your mind. Think about who you're with, what you're doing, where you are, and then write a couple of phrases on the notes that you're going to take. It's a quick exercise. So the next part is I'm going to show you a slide with a number of words of values, different values. It is by no means a complete list of values. It's what I could get on a slide. And you're being asked to select up to 4 values, words, that reflect what your picture, your vision of an ideal workday is. So this is the partial list of values. I'll give you a few minutes to go through this fairly extensive list and jot down your values.
We pick some of them.
I'm sorry?
Just pick some from there.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have some others that you don't find here, go ahead and list those. So this is about what you really value about your work and your ideal work day or work activity. Does anybody here in the room need more time?
I always need more time. Don't wait for me, man. I'm slow.
Well, it's a long list to scan. Is anybody online asking for more time, Sydney? No? Okay. I will move on. So the reflection from this exercise is, might those top values inspire any behaviors, maybe different behaviors than you're doing now, to support a healthier, more sustainable relationship between you and your work? It may not, they may not, but that's what I'm inviting you to consider. I'm hoping they don't inspire the opposite. Is anybody willing to share an insight, any aha that came to you from doing this exercise?
I can share something.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Please.
Okay. So I've been experimenting, like I'm really, without really knowing, I mean, I didn't know what you were presenting here, but over the past, to just make some changes in how I work, and I just saw, so like, I wasn't really aware of, well, let's say I have a value of health, which I didn't really know that I wanted to be, I just really want to be healthy, so, and I noticed that my work is more and more impacting my health, and then I somehow, I need more time to address that, like, I have issues with my hands, issues, whatever, from sitting, issues with my hip, like stuff happens. So I had to dial back on work to accommodate taking care of that. And then I thought, okay, I gotta have more fun, because I work and work, and, well, I didn't really know I wanted more fun, so I put that as a value on the list there.
Great.
People told me, well, what do you do for fun? I was like, fun? I don't know, I'll do that later. So I said, okay, I gotta have more fun, so then I thought about what would be fun, I just decided, okay, I'm gonna do some exercise, so I just put a block. Thursday morning, today I didn't because I'm refused to this, but I put exercise in there. And I just noticed that I feel so much, like I'm actually happier during the day.
Oh, great.
I didn't realize that acting on a value would actually improve my mood.
Wow. What a testimonial. Thank you, Kirsten.
That's why we talk.
Yeah. Anybody else willing to share what came up?
Well, I was noticing a I really enjoy working as a team, but I like my autonomy. So what came out of that was kind of a weird sort of contradiction.
Okay.
Like having freedom of expression and working as a team and contributing and design ideas and all that kind of sort of collaboration, but at the same time wanting to feel like I can do my own thing in that team. So it's kind of a dichotomy in a weird way. But maybe that's how design is, the way we work. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I think that's awesome. I don't see that as a contradiction. I'm totally resonating with everything you're saying. I like a great deal of autonomy. That's why I'm self-employed. And I like collaborating with other people. So, yeah, Donald.
I don't remember the exact wording, but one of your slides, as a kind of suggestion to improve a situation, something along the lines of don't obsess over minutia or something like that, don't get overly detailed on things. And the thought that came to my mind was, well, actually, most of my work is extremely detailed. I mean, like a lot of architects, you know, when you do your drawings, that they are a very detailed story about something. And it's not threatening in any way. It's rewarding because you're putting this picture together that involves a lot of details.
Yeah, great, thank you. I don't think I actually have a slide that said don't obsess over details.
Don't be a perfectionist. It's different.
It was don't fall into the trap of perfectionist paralysis. Whereas, yeah, if you can,
When you, for many architects or some, at least me, you know, when you're doing your drawings, when you find a flaw, you undo that flaw. And
absolutely.
So in a way, you know, you come away thinking, okay, these drawings are never going to be 100% perfect, okay? But I am moving in that direction the entire time.
Yeah, no, extraordinary results. There is, I hear you, there's a little bit of a contradiction in concept, so I think we all have to sort of find the sweet spot for ourselves that, you know, perfectionism can lead to paralysis and then the stress of being up against a deadline because you just didn't, you know, you didn't give yourself enough time to do the whole thing. So.
A related question that I had was, just looking at my situation, okay, I'm a one-person company, and I have been for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. Now, I've been wondering, you know, because a lot of your stories and anecdotes and things like that, it's like you're in a world of other people that you are constantly having to fulfill accomplishment with, okay? And so, in a way, that defines your own success. But I'm thinking, is there kind of a different kind of cul-de-sac for people who are just running a small little business, and it's really mostly what they are doing, even though they work for a client or something like that, mostly what they are doing is of their own, I guess for a better word, it's not as much, there's not as much social risk.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if there is that other kind of area for people who, because they do not have that level of social risk that some do. I mean, you know, you talk about these companies, you know, where you're room full of people and all that kind of stuff. When there's less of that social risk, whether or not that is a stress reducer right there.
You mean because you're in a big organization?
Yes, if I heard you correctly.
I don't know, we're moving into the discussion, so let's.
I guess that would be the risk of isolation. Like, you know, we're on the other end of the spectrum.
So I just want to be intentional here. We are getting into the discussion